This ear is very much softened by this bright light, and I need to wait until the paper is just the right consistency. So let's do a little test. Let's see if this area is dry enough to hold a line, but moist enough for that line to merge just a little bit and stay really soft. There's lots of Windsor violet in that ear. Do you see the violet light? All right, let's put a test dot. See how much it disperses. It's holding a pretty good line. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint this ear. It's a little bit more moist over here. I can do a little bit of blotting along this edge just to make sure I don't get too much out of control where I really need it. And I'm gonna change up the color in my brush a little bit by adding some burnt sienna and some ultramarine blue. I'm holding my breath. Do you guys hold your breath when you paint sometimes, when you're not thinking about it? All right, wanted that ear to have a little bit more control. And this is actually my soft scrubber brush, size 10, but I'm going to use it to paint into this ear on this side and just kind of sop up. And I just blotted my brush. Just pushing that up a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do is put a little bit more cream consistency burnt sienna into this area just to add some interest. And some ultramarine blue up here where there's I think his ear folds over a little bit. And that's really nice and soft. It's bleeding a little bit more than I want, so I'm just going to very gently dab up a little bit of that. And then, just to continue, while this paper is beautifully, beautifully semi-moist, I'm going to get tea consistency burnt sienna in my brush, and then I'm going to take my mop brush, which is for me my Alvaro Castagnet brush, and I'm going to get the whole area wet. I'm going to wring out my brush, so I just want it moist. I don't want it puddling. And I'm going to paint carefully along this one edge right here because I want this one edge of his nose to be really white. So that is the one place that I'm not going to put water on, but all the rest of this is in shadow. And then down in here is also very white. So I'll be careful to paint around that with my water and just make sure my margins extend well beyond where I'm going to paint so I don't get any weird lines. And a lot of these soft edges here where the light's hitting him will be perfect places to scrub out and it will look really soft when we do that. So keep that in mind that we'll be doing that. Now I'm going to get my size 10 round that has no point left on it. It's not really a good detail brush anymore, but it's good for larger areas. And I'm seeing a little bit of purple undertones in this nose, along with some burnt sienna. That does have Windsor violet in it, believe it or not. And This is a good test to see how far my paint's going to spread and how wet my paper is. So it's still a little too wet to stay within the margins of wherever I want to paint. So I'm keeping that in mind. So what I think I'll work on until it dries a little bit more is some of these margins of the nose that have like light brown areas. I'm looking at my reference photo a lot. I'm going to put a little bit of clear water in between these two spots because he's got like an area of white that goes up his nose. So I'm going to drop in some clear water there to do a little bit of my push technique and sop some up. Then I drop some cream consistency paint right in here where the darkest parts of his nose are. While my paper is still quite wet. You can tell how wet my paper is by how much the paint disperses once I put it on the paper. Down here is drying out, you can see. Keep in mind too, this will dry a lot lighter than what's going down. So I'm not too worried that this might be getting too dark. At this point, I'm not worried about that. And I just brushed the water out of my brush, and I'm gonna have more of a milk to tea consistency in my brush here to bring all this color down. And I'm gonna rinse out my brush again. I think this is dry enough that I can get a hard edge for this nostril over here. I'm gonna get my smaller size 0 round. Just do a little test right in the middle of the dark area and see how this is looking. Yeah, this is looking pretty much almost dry. So I can go ahead and looking carefully at my reference. I'm gonna rinse out my brush and put some water in it and then draw this black over. I'm gonna paint into this black with clear water. Because I don't want this edge quite as dark.